Welcome to Devotions from Israel, a 5-minute word of encouragement. Today's devotion comes from Luke 18. Now, during the course of Jesus' ministry, Jesus probably went to Jerusalem 6 or 7 times. Now, when he would go, he would heal the man at the pools of Bethesda, for instance, in John 5. He would heal a blind man in John 9. He would participate during the festival of Sukkot, or Tabernacles, this water libation festival, mentioned in John 7. In John 11, Jesus goes to Bethany, just to the east of Jerusalem, where he would raise to life this man named Lazarus. But probably every single time, including his entire Passion Week, his last week in Jerusalem, prior to his crucifixion and resurrection, Jesus spent a lot of time walking up these southern steps into the temple courts themselves. Now, at the very southern end of the temple, most likely, was the royal porch or portico. 162 pillars were a part of this particular area where Jews and Gentiles alike could actually gather. Now, inside the court of the Israelites, as well as the court of the women, any Jew could go that far. In fact, Jesus no doubt had many conversations about the kingdom there as well. But on one occasion, as we read it from Luke chapter 18, Jesus speaks of a parable about 2 individuals who are walking up these southern steps that you see behind me. And this is how the parable goes. Jesus told this parable: 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One a Pharisee, and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, "God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give 1/10 of all I get." But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Now put yourself in the place of these 2 individuals. One's a very pious man, or Pharisee. He had all of his theology correct. He knew what the rabbinic teachings were all about. He knew and memorized, no doubt, the Torah, the first 5 books, and no doubt a majority of the Ketuvim, or the writings, and the Nevi'im, the prophets. He knew his scriptures well. He had a high view of himself because of his position as a religious leader. And yet the tax collector is really the main character in this parable, because he too, as was his ability to do so, he was just as welcome as the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Essenes to walk up these steps into the temple. But this tax collector, in my opinion, was probably looking for something more than being acknowledged as a religious person. I think he had a struggle in his heart, and he knew it. He knew he was in need of God's mercy. not only for what he has been doing, he was a tax collector, yet probably also, and more importantly, because he wandered off from God's purpose for his life. Maybe he didn't even know God in a personal way. So here he stands and beats his breast with his hands and says, God, have mercy on me, for I am a sinner. What a humbling statement, and yet the most important statement for this man to begin a new journey of a life transformed by God's grace and mercy. Because if we think we are good enough in ourselves, if we have a high view of who we are, a religious person, we perhaps have missed the mark. And yet this tax collector realized on this occasion, as he walked up these steps, no doubt with his head hanging low, and yet he pleads before God, recognizes his sinfulness, and receives the mercy of God. His first steps to a life of a transformed person began with acknowledging in his humility who he was before a holy God. So take time today to humble yourself. Don't think too proudly of yourself, of who you are. Accept the fact that we are all sinners in need of God's grace. And as God offers grace and acceptance of who we are, receive it with a thankful heart and live a transformed life. Be encouraged with this story about the tax collector at the temple and receive God's mercy today. Until next time, shalom.